Nature provides for outbreeding with a tendency to divide the species in varieties. The latter form always happens when an animal species is preparing to scatter over large area. The secret of uniformity in breeding, considering the mechanism of chromosome distribution, is undoubtedly revealed by breeding in on the vertical system. It stands the reason that constantly inbreeding in this form will finally fix any characteristic, good and bad, once. It closes hermetically the whole form. Introduction of any outside characteristic and further improvement will be rendered impossible. It follows that the chosen stock must be of the highest order, and the breeder who is going to inbreed its stock for uniformity must be tolerably sure of the stock characteristics. After several generations, there is no fixed number to it. The offspring will show a marked uniformity of type and qualities, yet some other fanciers may have a stock of superior order, and you want to improve your own. Here is a simple example. If your stock has been strictly inbred, your breeders must have acquired that much desired prepotency or power to transmit regularly desired quality. Possibly, the other fanciers will have inbred stock to the same effect. Then, you cross with two different elements that have about the same degree of prepotency, and if you do not obtain fine results from such a mating, your luck is rather low. All probabilities are that you will succeed, but we must bear in mind that the dynamic in cell division is not known sufficiently to be actually controlled. And things take a course that we never had a reason to expect. Dormant qualities from ancestral strain suddenly appear, and surprises of all sorts may puzzle you, but in the main, if prepotency has been attained in both parents, you cannot go far wrong. This is simply showing you how variation takes place by crossbreeding or breeding out. And in fact, the only item that speaks in favor of the system is that crossing breeding doubtless imparts vigor and vitality to the offspring, while the generated fowl by inbreeding horizontally may be likewise regenerated with just one outcross, the latter fact accounting for the fact that there are so many breeders who advocate the system and who become naturally convinced of the excellency of it. But prepotency as a positive power in breeding operations can only be attained by methodical inbreeding in vertical sense. Type and color. Uniformity physically and mentally will in due course create a type. This type is composed by the systematic and harmonious proportion of the whole body. Atrophy in some organs and hypertrophy in other, we have learned, is due to defective glandular function, the segregation of which will affect growth correspondingly. We have reasons to believe that abnormal feather growth is controlled by glands which are stimulated by external causes. This is most animal and especially visible in the species inhabiting regions where extreme winter colds give way to hot summer. The most interesting feathers in cocks are those known as sexual, neck and saddle hackles, wingbags, and tail. While these are profuse in the peasant type Sumatra Middle in the wild Bangkiba, they are decidedly scant in the Malay. We will deduce therefore that the difference in those three types will be effect of difference in some specific glands and due to external influence. This is effectively so. As produced feathered fowl, you have very large adrenal glands, while they, as the testicles, are comparatively small in the Malay, which takes also more time to reach mule maturity and enjoy a longer life. It appears that the adrenal glands also controlled the color scheme of the Gallus Morio, Sumatra, and their offshoots, which have very large adrenal glands, are sometimes tinted black even as far down as the bones. It is done to reason the bird which necessarily must exert these and other glands to their utmost efficiency while producing feathers and colors will appear rather weakened as molting time. Again, here we have the evidence that heavily feathered and brightly colored birds have a heavier molt than those with scant plumage. The Malay does not resent the molt, and its fighting spirit is not broken during the period, but bankivoids and full-feathered slasher fighters become really sick, and if not attended to carefully, even die. We have learned why the Bankiva as flyer has more and much more feathering than the Malay runner, and consequently, their type must be entirely different following a logical reason. Accordingly, what is the ideal type of one species may prove wrong in the other. The breeder looking for his ideal type must therefore conform his aims toward that he wants or must produce. Moderation in every sense is the golden rule. In younger years, we were aiming towards producing a giant fowl, not for the feet, but for the satisfaction to see how par nature allows a fowl to grow. We eventually succeeded in producing birds tipping the scales at 18 pounds. What we learned by actual experience, the Japanese game fowl of this weight were by no means so scarce. With advancing age, we learned that no stream is of any good in the long run, and there should be no doubt that for game fowl, extreme in size are accompanied by sluggishness and failing nervosity. There will always be some breeders who advocate breeding shakes, and there is no earth reason why they should not to do it. It is a matter of personal taste. Even when we learn of the extreme superiority of the French yakes, we have to leave the item of size entirely to the prevailing natural condition. It is not size but type that makes a real fighting breed. While color marks the variety, though it cacking circuits, breeder care not a pig for color. We eventually will learn that uniformity of quality generally goes hand in the hand with an even color scheme. This means what is hybrid and selected stock color should be watched with the interest it deserves. Okay. Chapter 4, next.